Hey, all of you, thanks for standing by. And believe me, it's well worth it. We have a phenomenal episode of Over the Target Live this morning. We're going to be speaking with Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton, and he's going to be telling us about some of the new documents that they've unearthed regarding the FDA, the Biden administration, and it's really important stuff. I want to remind you, however, before we get to Tom, at 11:20, if you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube, we're going to be cutting away exclusively to Epoch TV. And believe me, today especially, you're going to want to make sure you join us at the jump, because I have something pretty interesting to say about what's going on in media. So make sure you make that jump at 11:20. I'm going to, I'll give you the countdown then, but make the jump and watch us on Epoch TV exclusively. Without further ado, I want to welcome Tom Fitton. Tom is a fantastic, incredibly important figure over the last 5 years. What he's been doing is helping all of us understand what's going on in our country by finding these different documents. Judicial Watch, that's their task. And then Tom explains what these documents mean, what our government is doing, and how it's affecting how we as Americans are living with each other. So again, Tom, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Welcome.
Hey, Lee, good to be with you. Appreciate the good word.
Yeah, thanks very much. So look, so one of the most recent things, I think it was just this week, or if not at the end of last week, but you guys produced different documents. You FOIA'd different documents regarding some of the debates at the Food and Drug Administration about the booster shots, about the COVID-19 booster shots. So if you can walk us through that for a little bit, that'd be great.
Yeah, the general concern is science guiding the approval process and the public health process that, we're all supposed to fall down and worship at the FDA, NIH, HHS, et cetera. And these documents show that there were people who were concerned and were objecting to the accelerated, seemingly, timeline set in place by the Biden administration, which to me is code for the Biden White House, for approval of these controversial boosters. And the language is the timelines make no sense. And they were concerned about, the nature of the studies they were getting and such. And as you know, they eventually did approve the boosters at the timeline that, according to these emails, made no sense. So you can draw your own conclusions.
What was the rush about? What was the rush for?
Well, they had, this was in 2021, and, there were concerns that the vaccine efficacy wasn't lasting as long as had been hoped for. And so there was this big push for boosters to increase immunity, at least for an additional period of time for recipients of the boosters. Now, some suggested that, we don't have the evidence that boosters are needed. Maybe they were wrong in that regard. I don't know. I'm quite skeptical of the whole machinery there. But nevertheless, there was this debate, and it looked like there were politics in the debate about imposed on the FDA by the Biden administration, as opposed to the kind of cautious scientific analysis we expect from the safety agency that is the FDA.
How much of this had to do with, sorting through some of the different documents? There's a lot of stuff and very important. And I want to ask you about the two doctors who were in charge of the vaccine division over at FDA and why they left. But first of all, I wanted to ask, how much of this has to do with, were there corporate pressures on the White House, which was in turn pressuring the FDA?
Well, they were complaining about the pressure from the manufacturers as well. So you had this corporate government pressure on, the civil servants who were over there, and they objected so much, at least two of them resigned, as you point out.
Right. What was there? That was their concern. It was about actually the pressure that was coming down on them from these two different.
Yeah, that was that was what they've been saying in public reports on the issue, that they were concerned about. They objected to the process and how it was short-circuited. And look, we have other documents about other issues that were related to the vaccines, about where they were, for instance, where the nanolipoparticles were hanging out in the body, that raised additional questions. And then, of course, a related issue is how did we get here that we needed the vaccines, which is where did the virus come from? Was gain of function research involved in it? Was the government and Fauci's agency lying and misleading us about this potentially dangerous research that maybe resulted in this contagion?
Do you feel that, I mean, there's a large body of the American public, again, that relies on your work, especially journalists from, I guess what we would call at this point, alternative news sources. But do you feel that there's been an effort to, well, look, I mean, they make it difficult for Judicial Watch, for you guys to get documents. Do you feel that the different, it's news, I mean, you're breaking news. Do you find that your news is reaching a large enough audience, or do you feel that there is pressure to stifle the work that you guys are doing?
Well, the legacy media has zero interest in holding the government accountable because it gets in the way of whatever political narrative is useful at the moment. It would strike me that key information about shaving inserting politics into vaccine approvals, questions about the testing results that contradict what they've been telling the public otherwise in terms of not necessarily about the efficacy, but about the other potential issues related to the vaccine. All that ought to be big news. I mean, this vaccine is the biggest thing in modern human history, right? And we're getting stonewalled. They're breaking the law. So when we sue under FOIA to get these records, which generally is what happens, you have to take a step back and say, why is Judicial Watch doing that? Well, Judicial Watch is doing that because the agency is refusing to follow transparency law. So they're breaking the transparency law to hide these records. So there's lawlessness involved in hiding this material from us, which I think, frankly, highlights that they have something to hide. And so the fact that these documents are not voluntarily given to us, and we have to wait.
We got to cut away for 1 second.
No.
We're just going to cut away for 1 second and make the jump. And when we come back from the jump, Tom, we're going to continue this conversation, and we're going to talk about social medias and the press's role in what you're describing. And it's a very important conversation. So please, if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, you have to make the jump with us to Epoch TV exclusively. Do it now. You don't want to miss the rest of this conversation. It's really important. See you in a second.
It is about profit. The vaccine enterprise is a fascinating business space. It is the ultimate cash cow. You have a monopoly. Bang. Okay. And it's not